Orthodox Church in Glenview commissioned me to make a tabernacle, which the bread is kept. And so I made this model. I think I probably made some drawings too. But this essentially, this part, this and this dome, is a form of the church itself, of the building. So I added all this, and this unscrews, and the bread is put in there. And this is the final piece. And this is my experience with Jack Benny, comedian. He was responsible for the Chicago Heart Association becoming a national organization. And I made this award, which was given to him. This was presented to Benny, and I'll never forget, he said, you know, over the years, I've been given all these plaques and awards, but this, I can put in any room in my house. It's a high compliment, you know? This was this organization commissioned me to make a hard hat. And they brought this hard hat. And I made this piece out of one piece of metal, out of a flat, it was an oval shape, by hammering. Would you like to try to do that? It takes lots of practice, of course. One-room schoolhouse, 8 grades. The teacher's name was Mrs. Holtman, Miss Hetland. And after Christmas vacation one year, we came back to school, and she said, "Now I want you to call me Mrs. Holtman." And when I went home that night, and I said, "Why does she?" To my mother, "Why does she want to be called Mrs. Holtman?" How brilliant I was. My parents, I am certain, although nothing was really said, they felt, and my dad especially, thought I was a farm boy and I should be a farmer. Well, that didn't work. So it was beautiful on the farm. My dad and uncle did all the work on my 250 acres with horses. They had about 10 young, beautiful animals. And there's that picture down there of my dad in the 8-horse hitch, and he invented that hitch. You know, if he were a young man today, he'd be doing something very productive, you know, financially, I'm sure. Oh, my folks were very good to me. You know, I'm sure they thought, you know, why the hell isn't he being a farmer? I went into the service in 1939 in the Navy, and then the Navy sent me, and I ended up at MIT, and I got that degree in aeronautical engineering. I was gone over 4 years. And I came back, and I had offers from all the big manufacturing companies to, you know, they wanted to hire me. And I finally took a job with a firm in DeKalb, Illinois. It wasn't very big. They had an engineering department of about 4 people. And one day, there were a pastel drawing. It was brought into the engineering department as with a deposit. They were considering manufacturing this object. I don't even remember what it was. And I saw that rendering. Like I could just, I'm living it right now. And I was so impressed with that, and so based on that, I registered in that September at the School of the Art Institute. And I wanted to take enameling, which is powdered glass is fired on metal, and it fuses. It's gorgeous. I mean, it's tricky to do, but you can do really wonderful things with it. The dean, I don't remember his name, was standing there when I was going to register. And he said, what are you going to take? And I said, I'm going to take enameling. And he said, well, you might want to consider this silversmithing course I'm starting. I coaxed Daniel Pedersen from the Kalo Shop to teach this course. You know, and I was there for 10 years. I ended up teaching industrial design in the day school, and then I got caught up in the silversmithing thing in the evening school. And I went 4 years, 3 nights a week, to the Daniel Pedersen, who was the foreman of the Kalo Shop. He came from Norway in 1915, and he had never taught. And he could do anything. I mean, we had to have a project, you know, and I'd design something, and I'm going to make this object. And he would tell me what to do. And sometimes it was a sort of a mystery to me. I said, why are we doing this? And that man couldn't verbalize and tell me why we were doing it. He'd just go ahead and do it. But the reasoning behind it, where it was going to lead us, was beyond his ken. So I started in Hyde Park. Ralph and I were living in Hyde Park then, and we were working in a Frank Lloyd Wright coach house, 1322 East 49th Street. By Don Baum, who was an artist and involved in the Hyde Park Arts Center. And it was very small. The garage doors, you open the garage doors, and in the floor is this big metal circle, 6 or 8 feet, it had to be at least 6 feet in diameter. And Wright designed that so that you could drive in, and then there was a big pole and a hole in this disc, and you'd walk the car around so that when you wanted to go out next time, you just drove right out.
Wow.
That was wonderful. It was really wonderful. You know, 50 years I was self-employed, doing one-of-a-kind, custom-designed objects. And you know, I never advertised, I never did anything. I waited for the phone to ring, and it kept ringing. Working that way, I guess I got some reputation, and people that I made something else for, would have a friend that would call me and ask me to make something, and it could be anything. You know, it weren't just bowls and chalices. I was making a lot of wedding rings for a long time. And the kids would come and they'd stand over there, and I'd say, what does this step mean to you? What I was after was something that I could use to make 4 or 5 drawings based on that make it personal to this couple. And a lot of times I'd say, what does this step mean to you? And they'd say, oh, we haven't thought about that. So, and they go away and come back, and honestly, very often, I was invited into a small area of 2 young people's lives that perhaps no one else was ever invited into.
something about how they met, or, you know, and I could use that to make 4 or 5 versions of the idea, and they didn't get to pick one. Almost everything I think I've ever done has been done that way, where the client got to choose the final solution, and then it was never repeated.
There were a lot of really tough jobs, you know.
It's the challenge of really making it where, making it like the drawing, of whatever you're going to make. I make the design first.
It was something that I enjoyed. Or I wouldn't have been doing it for 50 years.
I designed that Hanukkah lamp. Came up with the idea of reversing the form. And I was able to buy a sheet of sterling silver that was 1/4 inch thick, the thickest silver I could buy. And I sought out where the positive branches were in the commercially made ones. This was, it was empty. It was just there were slots. Then on the top I had the little candle holders. And that was in this Today show this was years ago, of course, that won a prize. I remember that. And there were other things too.
This fish server is in the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, part of their collection. Made that. See, it says, this is serve fish. And because of the juice, you need some pierced areas in this area of the server. So my solution was, I made this as lettering. It says fish, 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 and then it's backwards, fish, 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 fish. But when you turn it over, it reads from this side. Made a chandelier. This man lived in Pasadena. And it was about this high. It's for candles only. And these screws, these are screws here, you can't see them very well, but they unscrew and you can take each of the circle surfaces out to clean it. And he called me several times while I was working on this, and it took a while to do this. And I said, you know, I've been thinking, I'm concerned about how to ship that to you, Pasadena. He said, rent a car and drive it out. So Ralph and I rented a car and drove it out, and we stayed at their house for several days.
Well, one important thing that I haven't mentioned to you is that I'm a member of the Society of American Silversmiths. And Jeffrey Herman, who lives in Rhode Island, is the chairman. And there are in the United States, I think, about 20 to 30 members of the silversmiths who, in one way or another, you know, support themselves with their craft. Some of them use some mechanical equipment, you know, it's not all hand work. And I really don't know any of them, I mean, personally. And I assume it'll continue on, although it may diminish. The only student I ever had, I don't know how he found me. He His name is Kevin O'Dwyer. And after me, it was incredible the stuff that he got involved in.
Gosh, I mean, so many things. I've been really blessed, I tell you.
To have found that after stumbling around at the Charles River Basin, World War II. Oh, I'm gonna cry.